then, everyone. I think it's about time we get started. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really briefly, for those who aren't familiar with who we are, Search Laboratory, we are an integrated global digital marketing agency. We have around 150 people split between offices in both the UK and the US. So I guess in practical terms, that means that we can support clients throughout all stages of the online user journey, whether that be within SEO, paid media, programmatic advertising, or organic social media and digital strategy. And we're able to do that because we have an in-house multilingual digital marketing team. And this past year, we've seen global internet traffic and e-commerce adoption rise significantly, particularly in emerging markets. So if you are considering entering new markets, now is definitely the time to sort of seize those opportunities. So I'm hoping that in this webinar, we can sort of share with you how to find these opportunities and build your digital presence when you get there. And like Liam says, just to make you aware, we are recording this session as well. So just a little bit more about me. Nicola Winters, I'm the head of international at Search Laboratory. So I head up our team of mother tongue digital practitioners across the globe. And I guess our expertise is understanding that sort of cultural factors behind online behaviour. And we operate in around 35 markets currently. And I'm also joined by Anita, who is our digital strategy specialist. And she works really closely with all of our global brands, enabling them to spot these opportunities for sort of global growth. So for today, what we're going to run through is a little bit about what the International Growth Programme is and how we can identify these new market opportunities, how we've got access to various resources and data to help us make key decisions, and then a little bit around sort of the growth framework that we use and the sort of support along the way when it does come to sort of promoting our brands and services in international markets. So I guess to kick off, it'd be really interesting to find out from you guys attending where you are in the sort of going global cycle. So I know that there's a poll that you can sort of submit your responses to. It'd be really interesting to find out where you are. But without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Liam at Google, who can explain more about the International Growth Programme.
Thanks, Nicola. I think we'll just take a minute as well if people can, if you go into the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see the triangle, square and circle, which will give you the option to answer the poll. So if you wouldn't mind going into that and just taking 15 seconds to do so, it'd be brilliant to get your feedback on that. Great. Well, good morning, everyone, as well. So as Nicola said, my name is Liam Higgins, and I'm an international growth specialist here at Google. In my 4 years at Google, I've worked with over 50 agencies, including some of the top digital agencies across both the UK and Ireland, such as Search Labs, and over 1,000 businesses as a consultant before that. Prior to Google, I spent a year working in the marketing team in Johnson & Johnson. Nothing to do with the vaccines, unfortunately, but as well as that, I was also strongly involved in my family's local business here in Dublin throughout. So today I work with our top 1% of UK-based agencies, focusing on creating an ecosystem of agencies who we partner with to support businesses such as yourselves in achieving international success. Now, Google's international growth partner offering spreads across analytical, strategic and operational support, and we try to do that through creating best-in-class partnerships with our agencies, through joint international growth goals, and using those partnerships to focus on education through our online learning platform, scale training events, as well as some in-house workshops that we work quite closely with the agencies on. We want to provide a way to enable our agencies by creating and providing offerings specific to those who are on the program, such as giving access to exclusive tools, exclusive resources that help them to help their clients to overcome international barriers. And we want to do that and endorse this group of international growth partners externally, so that businesses can help find the right partner who can help them in their international journey. And we will come in and help you to unlock those kind of top opportunities if it is something that you are looking for. So why do we think that this is important at Google? Well, we know the cross-border growth is becoming more and more prominent. We've been hearing this from customers, from brands, and from agencies well before COVID. It just so happens that now it's actually seen as one of the most important elements to our economic recovery post-COVID. So adding to the significant growth that we had been seeing pre-pandemic. And it's something I've personally gained from pretty much my whole life, with Ireland being pretty small. We have to be a massive importer of both goods and services. So I've had to rely on it to get my fix of online shopping over the years. But aside from that, I probably don't want to think about what job I'd have if Google hadn't actually set up their operations here as well. So, but it's not just Ireland. I'm sure we've all bought something from abroad, whether intentionally or not, in the last 3 to 6 months. And digital is continuing its upward march across all sectors. Although most of what we hear or talk about is retail focused. There's no surprises as to why. Retail is the new norm, and it's happened quicker than we probably could have anticipated. And for example, Nike set a goal in 2018 to reach 30% digital penetration by 2023. They actually hit that pretty easily last year, and they've now upped that goal to over 50%. It's huge. And like I said, growth isn't limited to retail. The service industry is adapting and rapidly, particularly the likes of exercise and e-learning, as well as the music industry, news consumption as well. I think when we're thinking about exercise, we're probably all sick of the Peloton ads at this point. But it's absolutely incredible what they've done, in fairness. They've gone from a relatively unknown brand to probably one of the most prominent in the last 18 months. So I want to take a look at what trends are driving this growth. And I think it boils down to 3 key things. One is globalization. Obviously, we're also looking at this tech acceleration, and then also the increase in the consumption of digital media over the last while. And we know that economic recovery is going to rely on this international trade and this globalization, in spite of things like Brexit implications. We know that there's going to be this increased focus on resilience, on improving supply chain. And I think that that's why we'll see cross-border purchases continue to intensify over the course of the next couple of years. As well as that, this tech acceleration, as it's being called, isn't a joke. We've actually progressed 10 years in the space of 1 in terms of digital growth. Now, this is partially due to the need for business continuity, but more importantly, as a way to diversify and generate new customers and new revenue streams. Digital is now offering a way for us to do that internationally, much more quickly, much more safely than before, because we don't necessarily need to invest in these big structures on the ground and invest in our operations on the ground and look to maybe set up a shop or set up an office locally to show that we have that physical availability, because it's become less important, especially over the last 12 months. And the consumer, what we're all driven by at the end of the day, they're spending more time online than ever before. However, we know countries will and are recovering at very different rates. So as businesses, it's probably hard to know where should we be looking, what markets do we want to look at. Now, pre-pandemic growth was driven by urbanization and by those big mega cities. And long term, I think that's going to continue. I don't think investment is going to massively change in these cities, despite the fact that our working habits are adjusting and are most likely to stay adjusted in the future. And I think a huge portion of that is going to be down to the continued population growth, particularly in the US, who have a younger population. There is massive opportunity there in the future as we look to see that increase. And I think that's why there'll still be a focus on these mega cities. But in the short term, it's all about who's bouncing back quicker. We know that the US are injecting their economy with stimulus, which is allowing people to save. And as a result, there's this pent-up consumer spend that's just waiting to happen when things open back up. And with the rate of their vaccinations being so high at the moment, that's likely to open up a lot quicker. They're really starting to control the pandemic, despite a terrible reaction probably initially, but they're starting to control it. So it's likely that they're going to bounce back quicker, both in terms of economic recovery, but also in terms of that consumer spend and that consumer confidence. Now, on the other side, we look at Asia Pacific, that has this incredible, fast growing, dynamic economy. Now, their transformation of digital has been absolutely rapid, but it's also been because of things like more access to the consumer for businesses. And that's as a result of the emergence of these e-commerce platforms such as Shopee in Southeast Asia. They're now also scaling into Brazil and Latin America rapidly, alongside a big player in Mercado Libre there as well. Then we could also look at Flipkart in India, who are another one. They're allowing retailers to go online via mobile really, really cheaply for the first time, and going after this massive emerging market that probably only has less than 50% internet penetration, meaning that there is this massive target market that we still haven't actually explored yet. So a massive, massive opportunity both in North America and also in APAC. But and just to take a look at what that population growth is expected to look like over the next few years, it's grown 50% since 2018 up until now, or 40%, sorry, since then. But we're expecting that to continue and grow by another 20% in the next few years. So it's things like this that are causing the consumer behavior to change, and we should be excited about that. Not only are people spending more time online, but more people are actually spending time online. We now have access to new target markets in terms of those emerging markets that are increasing their internet penetration. But digitally, the older generation is actually creating a new target market for digital retailers and digital businesses, who in the last 12 months have become much more technically savvy. And as well as that, they have a higher spending power. So this really, really big opportunity is there in both retail and the digital service industry to go after an increased target market, or an increased, I suppose, valuable market as well. So why does more time spent online result in this? Well, when we shop, we're in one of two modes: exploration or evaluation. And we're constantly waiting for that purchase trigger before we make our decision to buy. And in between that purchase trigger and actually making the purchase itself, today's consumer is exposed to an overwhelming amount of information and choice. We've search engines, we've review sites, we've social media sites, retailers, comparison sites, video sharing sites, and all of them play a role in the decision-making process. So what happens with that? Well, it makes us more demanding. We now have choices based on availability, based on price, based on delivery times, based on how sustainably we make and source our goods, or how ethical our decisions are outside of that. So as consumers, we're constantly jumping back and forth between evaluation and exploration, because we're being hit with new information because we're spending so much more time online. And what this does is it erodes borders if we have a compelling offering that beats or competes with local brands. So there's our opportunity. Established brands probably need to protect their existing customer base, have more of a focus on long-term brand investment, just to make sure that those challenger brands maybe aren't creeping up on them. But as challenger brands, or as new market entrants, they have a big, big opportunity to gain some market share at a time when habits are changing and people are more willing to buy from new brands and new websites. And as shoppers, if you think about it, we don't shop or search by country. If I'm looking for a laptop, I don't search laptops in Dublin or laptops near me. I search for best laptops. I base my decision on price, or I base my decision on delivery time. If the laptop I have at the moment is broken, I want a quick replacement. There's an area for us to start to compete internationally and win customers by having a better offering and having a more compelling delivery option or returns options as well. So there's this big opportunity for us, and it's also a way for us to get in front of customers and be present when they're in this stage. So if you have a great product or a service, one of the ways that we can look to ensure that we're present as often as possible is through advertising. It allows us to be present at the right time for customers, highlighting your offering, highlighting your availability, your proximity. And that's why I'm really excited about international and what we're doing at Google to help businesses through that, through this agency program. We've looked to go beyond ads with our offering and to help you develop your international operations so that you can compete with local brands, so that you can improve your delivery offering, your returns offering. You can improve your customer experience to make it feel localized, to make it feel native, which allows you to compete and win customers internationally. So it's one of the many benefits of working with a Google International agency partner like Search Labs is access to consultants who've years of experience both in the industry and internally at Google, working with massive brands who have gone from being small retailers to being global players. Personally, I worked with a local pharmacy who are based actually just beside the Google office in Dublin called Mars, who in 2019 didn't have a retail website. They were purely traditional bricks and mortar, and they're now active in 58 markets globally. They spotted this increase in demand in vitamins, in the trends around vitamins and supplements, and they took advantage of it. They worked with one of the agencies on our program as well, and what they've done is managed to launch in 58 markets. So it's absolutely incredible the opportunity that is there for big brands and smaller ones. So my three key takeaways for today before I hand you over to Anita are this. Make sure you're present where your customers are. New habits means new opportunities, and people are spending time online. They're consuming media from different channels, from those video platforms, from news websites. Be present and make sure that you are showing up when they're in that exploration phase. And then when they move to the evaluation phase, let's try to build trust through transparent operations. Use that to formulate a compelling value proposition so that we can actually succeed in winning those customers when we do show up. And then thirdly, find a partner who can support you in your marketing strategy and in developing the operational resources to allow you to successfully execute against that strategy. And with that, I will pass you on to Anita, who's going to bring you through the Search Labs proposition and what they can look to do to support you. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks, Liam. So before we go into the nitty-gritty of that section, just a little bit of an intro to myself. So as Nicola mentioned at the very beginning, I'm one of the digital strategists here at Search Laboratory. So very broadly speaking, my role is to align our clients' business goals to an overall digital strategy and outline growth plans, including those by international expansion. So in this section, we're going to talk about how to obtain market insights that can help you identify potential expansion markets and drive growth for your business. So you're going to learn how to combine the latest consumer insights industry insights with your own data to build that effective international strategy, regardless of whether you are already active in some international locations, or if you're only just planning to expand into your first market. So we did hear from Liam about some of the benefits of going global, and expansion to new markets can offer expansion to new markets is incremental, can help business recovery, and that's probably something that we're all looking for after the last year, and can definitely drive profit. But as your company develops that expansion strategy, you may be asking yourself, what is actually the best way to determine which international market makes the most sense for my business? And in fact, 60% of brands who already sell internationally say that obtaining those market insights is the most critical barrier to building an effective international strategy. So today I'm going to show you how insights can remove guesswork from your next international move and answer crucial questions like, which market have the biggest demand for my product or service? What level of competition should I expect? What level of investment do I have to be prepared for to help me acquire a new customer? And finally, what potential revenue can I expect? So building an effective international strategy incorporates 4 stages, and they really can be boiled down to where to go, what to do, how to do it, and how to measure it. But I'm going to focus solely on that first stage, how to uncover those markets to tap into. So let's move on to some of the tools and how we use them. So there are 3 steps that I'm going to go through in this section and show you how we leverage both Google's and our own technology to capture those international opportunities. So first, we're going to explore some of the data available in Market Explorer. So this is one of the tools available to us through Google's International Growth Partnership. And Market Explorer is an analysis tool that combines both Google and third-party data. It shows a relative opportunity within various international markets based on metrics such as industry demand, trends within that industry, or a level of competition. And all of that is presented in a tool on a 1 to 10,000 scale. We are then going to show you how we transform those metrics to be more meaningful for your business using your own data. And finally, how we can visualize those market insights in your bespoke market opportunity tool. So let's jump on to Market Explorer. So the tool is interactive and really easy to use. So we're going to start with selecting one of the predefined categories, and that reflects the industry that you operate in or the industry that you're interested in. So I'm going to go with home and garden, just in time for spring. Once we've defined our category, we are then led to the main page. So Market Explorer contains a huge amount of information, but what I really wanted to focus on today are those metrics and charts that we'll need later for our more specific forecast. So I did actually prepare a chart that I wanted to share with you. So the correlation chart that we're looking at display on the x-axis, we're looking at category interest. So this is the representation of the product demand within our predefined home and garden category. On the y-axis, we have category interest growth. So that is year-on-year demand change. And finally, the category cost as a proxy for CPCs. So that category cost is represented as bubble size. So I think it's worth mentioning that US will probably be the biggest market within many categories, purely because of the sheer number of consumers in that market and the size of the US economy. But this chart really gives us a good overview of the correlation between that industry demand growth and cost of advertising within those display markets. So if your objective is to maximize revenue as fast as possible, we should be focusing on those markets with high demand. So demand is represented as a category interest, as we said. So Germany, Japan, obviously US, they definitely stand out. They are the demand in those markets seems to be higher than in our domestic market. If we were looking for more sustainable expansion, we would want to find those low-hanging fruit. So markets, international markets with low cost but high demand, so high interest. And again, Japan definitely stands out. So the demand is clearly there for our products, and the bubble size, which is probably half the size of our domestic market, represents that level of competition there, and therefore our cost of advertising will be much lower. So this is really just a fraction of data available in the tool, and it can be really useful when it comes to gaining that top level understanding of the global market and highlighting those potential opportunities. However, what we can't gain directly from the tool is the answer to our initial question. So how much do I actually have to invest to see a return, and what revenue levels can I expect? So this is why we have built a tool that allows us to transform those index numbers into approximate absolutes. So let's see how we can enhance that Market Explorer data. So I wanted to use category interest as an example to illustrate that transformation. So just as a sort of background information, in order to get those interest numbers, Market Explorer index query search volume across all those countries and then adds up those index values. So really our category interest is an index of query volume by country and industry, and displayed in that tool on that 1 to 10,000 scale. So let's assume that those countries are being displayed in a tool, and those countries have the following index numbers assigned to them. So if we can then take a sample of our own data from our domestic market, so in this case, this will be your Google Ads impressions and impression share, we are able to calculate the total size of your home market. And once we have calculated that for one market, we can then calculate it for all markets available in the tool and understand that demand for your products from a global perspective. We can then take it even further by incorporating some additional inputs of known data from the seed market, such as your click-through rate, your website conversion rates, or average order value, and then project investment and acquisition cost, revenue, or ROI. So the final step is really to visualize those opportunities. So I'm going to use a dashboard that we have put together for one of our clients, so an online retailer. It is using a different category to our home and garden example that from Market Explorer, but it should serve as a good example of how we can help you answer those crucial expansion questions. So there is 3 pages here, so it's quite quite simple tool to look at. So the first page that you're looking at is an overview of the top opportunities from that demand perspective, and towards the bottom of the page we can see growth in each market. So the top metrics represent EMEA as a total, and we can narrow it down by looking at top 10 countries based on that EMEA total market size, and understand really how big are other markets in comparison to my seed market. So if you were to enter a new country with the same coverage as you have in your domestic market, this is the number of impressions that you can expect. We can see what percentage of that total EMEA market this country represents, and what we are looking in terms of our cost per click within our industry. So what stands out for us on this page is that entering Germany could potentially double our revenue, as the size of the market is similar to our domestic market. Or, for example, entering Italy could add 50% to our revenue, as this represents around a half of our domestic market demand. So the tool is interactive, and you can either filter by a single market, or you can explore other opportunities by changing the region here, or we can explore markets on deeper pages of that table. So pages 2 and 3 show us market size against estimated customer acquisition costs and ROAS. So here we can quickly gain insights into which markets offer lower CPA from both growth and size perspective. So we can also find those low-hanging fruits, like for example, France or Turkey. So we can see a relatively low CPA, but year-on-year demand growth, or we can drill into an estimated revenue for those biggest markets by simply filtering on one of the charts. If there are any specific acquisition costs that acquisition targets that you are working towards, we can also narrow those markets down by simply using that toggle. So of course, we do need to remember that there is a level of estimation here, but those estimations can definitely sort of steer us in the right direction when planning our international expansion, excuse me, and our next international moves. So, excuse me, just to sum it up before I pass on to Nicola, I think I need to get a sip of water. This type of analysis can offer insights into what international markets offer the biggest opportunity for my business, how much would it cost me to acquire new customers and in those countries, and what level of revenue can I expect from that expansion, and really allow us to sort of use insights to prioritize our expansion. So really taking away that guesswork from planning your global moves. And on that note, I'm going to pass on to Nicola, who's going to tell you a little bit more about international operations.
Thank you, Anita. And hello, everyone. I just wanted to push my cat out of the way, to start off by saying that it can still be incredibly difficult to know what to do with that data. So even though you're aware of which markets offer the most opportunity, sorry about that, it's still hard to know what to do next. And I guess that's why Search Laboratory are here to sort of explain how we can help. So again, we're just this global digital marketing agency. We have global offices both in the UK and the US. And I guess something that's quite unique about our setup is that, as I've mentioned earlier, we do have an in-house team of mother tongue digital practitioners, and they support the various specialist channel teams. And we're also able to pull on a further resource, as well as this data, software and tools that we've mentioned today. But we can also work with our external partners and in-country experts that just give us that next sort of level research. So this very setup allows us to provide almost like a one-stop location for all international activity. So it's not just kind of on that multilingual campaign management and execution. We can also support in providing insights or actions into customer service best practice. It might be approaches into localization or even translation projects. It could be looking at sort of local level delivery and logistics solutions as well. And then sort of sharing details about how to satisfy needs, whether it's global or local payment options for users on the website. And this link up between, Google's GBS team and our capabilities as an agency has just sort of even further strengthened that ability. And international has been at the heart and at the core of what we do since we started back in 2005. So I guess that means that we're sort of sat on a wealth of knowledge and experience, and we often put together resources or guides and advice articles that can be found across our website. But for the purposes of this webinar, I thought it would be a good idea to just summarize our three sort of main focus areas for international growth into these three sections. So I'd love to go into a little bit more detail about our approach to website localization and sort of market entry, making sure that you have a good website from day one that has an opportunity to satisfy user needs, but also to convert from day one as well. So we look to how to satisfy cultural compliance in that way across various territories. And as I've mentioned, how we sort of align the goals of our clients with that channel activity, and sort of advise and implement on the best advertising solutions. But ultimately, what we're striving towards is just global market success for our clients. So like Anita mentioned, it might be that you're already existing in quite a lot of already selling in quite a lot of international markets, and it's more of a growth strategy that you need. And one of the things that we always consider when working on our digital campaigns is the user. We've got a very user-first mentality. And rightly so. I mean, over 80% of shoppers are more likely to buy from particular brands or businesses if the content is available in their local language. And I guess on the flip side of that, from a business perspective, we're all too aware that, brands will admit that localization is potentially their number one hurdle when expanding into new markets. And so it kind of brings me on to this first key area, so optimise translation. So our approach to localization is much more than you'd expect from this sort of standard typical workflow. And that's because we integrate SEO practices into that project workflow. And it essentially just means that we can provide an optimized, ready to rank website from day one. So a little bit more information on how this works. First off, I'm all too aware of how expensive and how overwhelming and complex localization projects can become. And so we start off by really trying to understand the ideal platforms that we should be on, and what sort of advertising solutions are relevant. And from there, we agree on a localization timeline that would satisfy users, but also allow us to see a return on that investment before sort of going into stage 2 of this project. And so it might be that we work into a staging timeline where we can think about, do we need a full website launch from day one? Or is it more of a microsite with main products? Do we need landing pages to test out new markets using paid campaigns? Or are we thinking about third-party sellers or marketplaces producing brand content for third-party sites? Now, once we've sort of decided on that staging, we always look to drive users to the site from day one. And that's where we blend translation memory and SEO practices together, which I'm going to talk about in more detail soon. And then we also look to remove those conversion barriers. So just making sure that we're thinking much more beyond words on a page. We need to make sure that all of the content for international audiences is linguistically faithful, ready to rank from day one, so it's visible in the SERPs, and that it's sort of satisfying those cultural needs. So a typical translation workflow, when using translation memory, for anybody that's not aware, translation memory is a linguistic database that simply stores all of the translations you've ever made on a site, and it means that you can use them in the future. So you can imagine it's a godsend for large projects because it can cut costs with repetition in words. It can help with productivity and speed, and also consistency. But the problem is when translation is performed completely separately to that workflow. And so at Search Laboratory, what we do is marry up the skills of digital and copywriters and essentially build a glossary at page level of search behavior and optimized copy, so that we are making sure that when we are translating this in the future, everything that comes out of that translation memory is optimized, ready for search purposes, and will continue to allow them to be visible in those markets. So our approach tends to be to incorporate digital into the center of all of our projects. So we'd always provide that glossary of terms, make sure that we're putting the search behavior in there, start with keyword research, apply it to pages, and then we can use that optimized keywords in future. Now, one of the ways that once we've sort of launched in new markets, it can still be quite hard to sort of maximize performance and get those market insights that Anita was mentioning. And we sort of get around this at Search Laboratory by providing what we call cultural audits, or they could be a market entry report. But essentially, they're a really detailed and in-depth sort of audit on a domestic website, or an existing localized website if you're already selling. And it aims to sort of weigh up your site against local competitors, but also just market standards and expectations of the users. And so we kind of use these reports to understand the actions that businesses need to take to ultimately overcome these cultural barriers. So when we conduct these audits, we tend to look in 5 key areas. So the first one being kind of the checkout process and anything to do with transactions. So this could be the correct payment methods, delivery methods, collection and returns policy. We also think about customer service. What are the contact options? Is this the sort of standard that is necessary for this market? Trust signals can massively impact your sort of conversion rate. So we think about reviews, personal data and transaction protection, as well as right the way down to trust seals and sort of certifications that you can provide on your website to resonate with users. We're always providing local level competitor and best practice comparisons, and incorporating user experience, CRO best practice into everything that we do. And so an example of what we look into would be just on the trust signals example that I was talking about earlier. We would identify which are the necessary seals of approval, or which are the necessary badges from certain partners that should be present on the site. And we will always kind of review your own site against competitors, but we track the results that these bring as well. So we sort of have that access to insights that say, when we've made these changes, we've seen an uplift in performance or conversions by X amount. And likewise, it could be if we're thinking about delivery, logistics, then again, we can tap into some sort of key decision-making moments that the audience is having, and again, track the performance of making these changes and seeing what that does to revenue. And so just lastly, just to kind of pull on that multilingual campaign support, really how to build and maximize performance, I thought I'd start by just explaining our matrix of services. So it kind of starts with our primary services. So these are all, specialist award-winning departments. And the international team sort of supports all of those teams, that they act as an extension of those departments. And they also have the ability to pull on that, best in-house tools, technology, some of which we've seen today, some of which we create in-house. And we wrap that around a digital integrated strategy, just to ensure that we're using, data analytics and business intelligence in absolutely everything that we do to sort of steer our efforts through the entire journey. And I just kind of wanted to finish by giving you an example of when we've helped one of our clients, Appian. So when we first started working alongside Appian a couple of years ago now, it was following sort of a period of huge growth for them. And they required an agency to support with lead generation. And this was across around 10 territories and 5 languages. And so we identified a need to use their data to consolidate sort of activity. And we also looked into which assets and channels worked best in each market and moved the budget around accordingly. So we could always improve that lead generation whilst keeping the cost per acquisition relatively low. And we're incredibly proud of what we do at Search Laboratory. This particular case study has actually won the award for the best in-paid search and biddable media. Oh God, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Biddable media category. And that was at the Best Digital Awards this year. So yeah, incredibly proud of the work that we can do with our clients. So I guess in summary, what we're striving for is global market success. We, combine data with languages, and we believe that it's really important when sort of having a go-to-market plan for digital activity that we integrate digital and search optimization practices into localization workflows, and also that we're constantly thinking about how to utilize market insights and thinking about how to maximize performance and the conversion rate of our international sites. And I guess just to finish, this is our sort of mission, purpose. We connect the best digital talent and technology, enabling the world's most ambitious companies to win. So thank you so much for joining us today and for listening to us talk you through that. It'd be really interesting to know whether anyone has any questions or any comments. Okay. We actually have one question through, and that is, if you wanted to test a few markets, what would the advice be? This is actually something that we do quite a lot. So when we're uncovering certain opportunities for international expansion, before sort of investing a lot of time, effort, resource, and budget into website localization, we instead might build localized landing pages and stick a paid campaign behind them, and sort of just be able to capture our own data through the performance of that. And yeah, just make sure that we're localizing the landing pages for those types of things. And we do have another question, which is best to target, a language or a country? Now, apologies, I'm not going to fob you off, I promise, but it really does depend. There are sort of advantages, disadvantages with both. But one thing that I would say is targeting a language does allow you to sort of fully optimize your site for people who are living in a different country. But, you know, by targeting a country, it does mean that you're able to, I guess, send a bit of a stronger location and trust signal to users as well as Google. And we just need to make sure that it's technically set up correctly, so that we're always displaying the right content in front of the right people, depending on their search terms, language or location. So yeah, I would say it's very much a technical SEO sort of area. I think that is all. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, if anybody has any more questions and you want to get in touch, then feel free to.